same week. Much like the one that killed him, it was also a scene in which his character was running. Level 7. NASCAR. In the early days of NASCAR, safety equipment was practically non-existent. The cars were modified street vehicles held together with whatever the teams could afford, and the cameras were always rolling, no matter what. On February 20th, 1954, Universal Newsreel had a camera crew positioned at the Daytona Beach road course to film the 125-mile modified division race. The course was unique in early NASCAR. It ran partly on the beach sand and partly on the adjacent paved road connected by tight turns at each end. Dick Kaufman, a 23-year-old Korean War veteran from the Bronx, was pushing his vehicle at full speed down the beach straightaway. Then, his car lost a wheel. At speed, the sudden loss of the wheel dug the axle into the soft sand, and the vehicle flipped violently, rolling multiple times end over end down the beach. Kaufman, with no modern safety harnesses to hold him in place, was thrown from the tumbling wreckage like a rag doll. The grainy black and white newsreel footage captured the entire sequence in horrifying detail. His body was visibly hanging limply from the wrecked car as it finally came to rest, the chassis twisted and broken around him. He sustained massive head and internal injuries. He was rushed to Halifax Hospital in Daytona Beach, but died later the same day. It was the first fatal accident on the Daytona Beach course. Dick Kaufman left behind a wife and young child. The newsreel footage was distributed to cinemas across the country as part of the standard pre-feature reel played before comedies, cartoons, and family pictures. It remains one of the earliest records of motorsport death ever committed to film. Sliders. The sci-fi series Sliders often filmed in remote locations to simulate alien worlds, but one episode turned a sci-fi prop into a real-life death trap. On September 20th, 1996, the show was filming at the El Mirage Dry Lake Bed in San Bernardino County, California. The flat, barren landscape was standing in for the episode's post-apocalyptic setting.
We're not alone in this world.
Yes. Well, the natives do not appear to be hospitable.
Guest actor Ken Steadman, 29 years old, had been cast in the episode. Between setups, the production needed to move a sandrail and open-frame dune buggy from one location to another across the lake bed. Steadman volunteered to drive it. Now, this was supposed to be a simple transit move between scenes, but as Steadman drove across the dry lake bed, the car suddenly flipped. The force of the turn sent the sandrail rolling violently, but the car had nothing to protect the occupants from the weight of the frame. Steadman was pinned beneath the heavy metal frame as it rolled over him, crushing him into the hard-packed desert floor. He was airlifted to Antelope Valley Hospital.
Guys, saya jamin kamu belum pernah lihat episode ini. Namanya Lupin. Kamu mulai scroll dan kamu literally nggak bisa berhenti.
Valley Hospital. He was pronounced dead shortly after massive blunt force trauma at the age of 29. The production shut down for a week. The stand-in was used to complete Steadman's remaining scenes.
Connor, why don't you just go on home, man? No, it's here. I was there. Wasn't I?
The episode eventually aired with a dedication card at the end, but nobody involved with the production has ever spoken out about what exactly happened on the set, why the car flipped. The Walking Dead. Stunt work is inherently dangerous, but the margins for error are supposed to be carefully managed. On July 12, 2017, the set of AMC's The Walking Dead failed to manage those margins by inches. Experienced stuntman John Berniker, 33 years old, was performing a fight scene for Season 8 in Sonoya, Georgia. The choreography called for actor Austin Emilio, who played Dwight, to grab Berniker by the belt and throw him over a 22-foot balcony railing. Below, a catcher system made of cardboard boxes and porta-pit pads was set up to break his fall. But the setup had problems. The balcony railing was commercial height, difficult to clear without a step-up box. Only one spotter was positioned below, and critically,
Follow
the
me
catcher
on
system did
Snapchat.
not extend all the way to the back wall beneath the balcony. There was a gap of unprotected concrete between the pads and the wall. Before the take, Emilio asked Berniker if he had ever done a fall like this before. Berniker said he had done a few, but never from this height. But he gave the thumbs up anyway. Cameras rolled, and he went over the railing. But as he fell, he reached out and grabbed the railing with both hands, trying to stop himself. His momentum swung his body underneath the balcony. He hit the structure, released his grip, and spun upside down. He fell head first toward the concrete floor. He missed the safety pads by inches. He landed on the unprotected gap between the catcher system and the wall. The 911 call described him as barely conscious and bleeding from the nose. He was airlifted to an Atlanta trauma center. He was pronounced dead later that day from blunt force trauma to the head. OSHA cited the production company Stalwart Films for failing to protect employees from hazardous falls. The maximum penalty at the time was $12,675. OSHA's regional administrator called the death a wake-up call for the entertainment industry. Berniker's parents filed a wrongful death lawsuit, and in December 2019, a jury awarded them $8.6 million. And in 2021, the Georgia Court of Appeals reversed the verdict. Cops. The reality show Cops pioneered the ride-along format, embedding camera crews with active police units during real operations. For 25 seasons and 27 years, nobody on the production side had ever been killed. Placing unarmed civilians in the middle of violent confrontations was always a disaster waiting to happen. In the summer of 2014, sound technician Bryce Dion and his cameraman had been riding with two Omaha police officers for roughly 8 weeks. They had developed a working relationship. They knew the routine. On August 26, a radio call came in. Armed robbery at a Wendy's near 43rd and Dodge. The officers were only a few blocks away. They went directly to the scene. Dion and his cameraman followed them right into the building. But the officers never identified Dion and his cameraman to the detective who was already on scene. That detective saw two men in dark clothing with the officers and assumed they were law enforcement. He didn't notice the boom microphone or the audio equipment. Inside, the suspect, Cortez Washington, was holding up an employee at the register. When officers confronted him, he drew what appeared to be a black handgun and pointed it directly at them. And he pulled the trigger. Now, it was a pellet gun, but it looked and sounded real enough. So 3 officers opened fire. 36 times in 17 seconds. Washington ran toward the east vestibule doors, and in the chaos, Dion became separated from his cameraman. He ended up trapped in the vestibule, directly between the fleeing suspect and the officers still firing. One bullet struck him under the arm through the gap in his bulletproof vest, the one area not covered.
Bryce, are you alright? Bryce, are you alright?
Bryce Dion was killed. He had worked on Cops for 7 years and had just been promoted to sound supervisor. Cortez Washington was also killed. The Omaha police chief later said he would never have invited Cops to film in his city if he had known this would happen.
Nobody wanted Bryce to get hurt. Nobody wanted anybody to get hurt. Police work is very dangerous. It's very chaotic. And when you're reporting police work and riding along with us, unfortunately, you subject yourself to that same level of violence that all police officers do every day.
The grand jury returned no criminal charges. Dion's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the city. The case was later dismissed. Cops was eventually canceled in June 2020, but not because of Bryce Dion's death. It took a national reckoning with police to finally pull the show off the air. And even then, it was 6 years after a crew member died in a Wendy's vestibule over a pellet gun. If you thought these global TV show disasters were disturbing, wait until you see what we uncovered on the TV network's iceberg. And also, this iceberg doesn't end here. We have an exclusive and uncensored Level 8 now available on our Patreon. Link in the description.